Author's Press.
Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio, welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. And on the line with us today, we have David Hayes. We'll be discussing his fantastic book, Be Not a Seeker, Be a Seer, available at authorspress.com. And I will say, David was brought to People of Distinction today by Authors Press Publishing. So listen, if you have a book that you'd like moved, move it to Authors Press. You can find them once again at authorspress.com. And guys, listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have David here on the line with us because his book we're going to be discussing, Be Not a Seeker, Be a Seer. Listen, it's a fictional narrative, but it's a fictional narrative with such a great message and really something that we can all connect to and relate to, or at least I know that I can. I mean, how often do we run through an issue, or do we come up against an issue or some type of adversity, some challenge, and the answer for that challenge, the way it's going to be solved, a lot of times is right there in front of your face. You just miss it. And a lot of times you overlook it, right? It's right there on your nose and you miss it. And I love it because this is something that I've come in contact with plenty of times. I think it's a great message. A lot of times we just have to open our eyes. We have to become the seer and see the problem for what it is and see the answer that is right within our grasp. And that's fantastic. Listen, David is the expert on the matter. He's done the research. He's written the book. He's going to be able to articulate all the nuances in his book much better than I ever could. So without further ado, we have him here on the line with us. So let's go ahead and jump right in. David, first and foremost, thank you so much for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction. How are you?
Benji, I am great. Thank you. This is quite an honor. Quite an honor.
Fantastic. Well, listen, thank you very much for your kind words. The honor is all ours. We're really looking forward to this. Now, David, before we jump into your book, let's hold off slightly. Tell our listening audience a little bit more about yourself.
Part of the background, when I started in law enforcement in 73 at the University of Wyoming Police Department, and then left there, went back to school, joined the Albany County Sheriff's Office in Laramie, Wyoming for 7 years, and when I moved to Arizona, where I now presently reside, I joined the Arizona State University Department of Public Safety for 12 and a half years. So I have 22 years of experience in law enforcement. After that, I got my bachelor's degree in sociology. So I have a background in people work, I would say. So.
Fantastic. Well, David, listen, first and foremost, thank you very much for your service. We truly appreciate it here on our network, everything you've been able to do.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Now, David, let's jump right in. Be Not a Seeker, Be a Seer. Tell us a little bit about your book.
It's a book about a man named Mathew Anthony Newmore Slains, who was a retired deputy sheriff and patterned somewhat after me, who loses his wife of 2 years in a terrible car accident. And it brings up a lot of anger and grief, and so he decides to run away from the grief, and he moves from Wyoming to a place back east. But, of course, the anger follows him. And then he starts hearing voices talking to him about the anger. And he meets a new group of people that he didn't know, and they start discussing past lives that they've all shared. And the group keeps talking to him, and the voices helping him. And then his late wife comes back in spirit form and is working with him to release all the anger. So he just progresses through all these steps of trying to get rid of this terrific anger. He wasn't there when she died, and he feels real guilt about not being there in her time of need. So he has to learn to release that.
Absolutely.
So he also shares some of these past life experiences, which give him life stories and morals and things like that too. So that's an interesting book. And I will say one thing that did pop up when we talked about earlier. Yes, this is my first book, but in the writing of this, Benji, it always came to me that it was a trilogy. So this is book 1 of 3. And I'm working on book 2 now.
Fantastic. Well, listen, the book 1 sounds incredible. Again, just one thing that I particularly related to as you're talking, and I think it holds a special place given what we're currently going through with this COVID situation, right? And just life and death, right? Death and being an inevitable part of life. And I think a lot of times, even though, speaking from my own experience, even though death is something we know is going to come, how much of us are ever really prepared when it happens? Especially with a loved one that is that close, right? You know, between a husband and a wife. And having this character wanting to really run away and escape from the passing of his wife, again, is something that I'm sure so many people are going to be able to relate to, especially given what we're currently going through with this COVID situation. So many of us have experienced similar aspects where we've lost loved ones, and we're trying to run away from the issues that we're currently facing. And at the end of the day, as I'm sure your character will come to the realization, you can't run away from your problems, right? You have to face them. You have to see them and push through and get it resolved. And I think that's an amazing concept. And, you know, as you're talking, it's loosely based upon your life and some of your experiences. And I love stories oftentimes that are steeped in reality and have that connection, because it makes it so much easier for the reader to latch on. Now, David, let's go into the next thing that I'd love to discuss, would be the title. Be not a seeker, be a seer. Now, I can assume where that title comes from and really the relation it has to your book. But you know what happens when you assume, David, so I'm not going to do that. We have you here on the line with us. Why did you choose that title to be the representation for your book?
This is quite an interesting story. I started out, the title was my book on Matthew, and it was always that, and then I kept it up. And as I was writing the book, and I don't have an outline, the book just comes to me. As I say in the book's already written, and I'm channeling it. I'm on, and I'm thinking, well, this title, and so in the excerpts on the back of the book, in which it comes in, this be a seeker, or be not a seeker, be a seer. So I'm typing this paragraph out in this section, and I type out, be not a seeker, be a seer. And it's like, okay, the lights go on. That's the perfect title for the book. It was just there, and I knew instantly in my heart that was the title of the book.
You know, that mark of inspiration. You never know when it's going to come, but when it does, it hits you, and it's undeniable, right? Fantastic.
Oh, yes.
What a great segue you've established for us, David, because the next concept that I wanted to get into was inspiration. So, A, what inspired you to write this particular novel? But then B, listen, you talk about a background that you have for 22 years in law enforcement. What inspired you then to switch to a creative journey of this magnitude and become a writer?
I've always been creative, and I've always been a good writer. I wrote, in police work, you're always writing reports. I wrote really good reports. I've read all my life since I was age 6. I've read books, all kinds of books. And when I got out of law enforcement and found my second wife down here in Arizona, I had a counselor turn me on to Carlos Castaneda books, which are spiritual. And so I got into metaphysics. And when I get into stuff that's reading, I read everything I can get my hands on. Mm-hmm. And so I turned into spirituality and stuff with the past lives and things. But I also, because I have experience with Matthew being a former deputy, and I did not lose my wife to an accident. That's just part of the story. Mm-hmm. It just grew. Now, I've always been told by a couple deputies and officers I work with, write a book about police work. I have all these stories. And I thought, no, I don't want to be like Joseph Wambaugh, who was an outstanding writer of police books. But I didn't want that. But I integrated it into this book of spirituality, and it just fit. It's an integration of myself. In this book, I wrote basically mostly for myself, to get all these ideas that I have inside out onto paper. And if people resonate with them and everything, that's great. So Just something that I've studied about life and stuff for years. I'll put a book, I'm going to write it down on paper, and I did.
Here on the line with David Hayes, we're discussing his book, Be Not a Seeker, Be a Seer, available at authorspress.com. David, this has all been fantastic thus far. And, next question that I'm curious about for myself. What would you say was a highlight for you in writing this book? Or if not a highlight, maybe something that surprised you that you weren't expecting prior to embarking upon this journey?
In the book, the group, not the group of the voices, but the friends that Matthew makes are fairly metaphysical, and they end up taking trips together. Not necessarily past lives, but some of that. They take trips out into the universe and into a different realm than what we see here in the everyday world. And Matthew gets to meet his dreams, and they're all orbs of light, and they're all kinds of dreams, and some of them come from past lives or concurrent lives and all this stuff. And those dreams really, I don't know where they came from. They just, all of a sudden I'm writing and it's an idea in my head and I type it out. So to get all of that was an eye-opener for me too. So that was a highlight as to how I could expand myself and my thinking within my book.
Fantastic. I think that definitely, that's more than a mark of a great writer. If you're able to, in turn, learn a lesson from your own writing while you're going through with it, what a blessing that is, right? When you're starting off in this creative journey, and really it's just an art form for you, and you have ideas in your head you want to get out on the page, but then in turn are also able to be influenced and learn from it. I think that's pretty incredible. That's fantastic.
Yeah, a quick story on that, Benji. As I'm typing out the book, and all of a sudden, there's some time gone, maybe 5-10 minutes, something. What happened? I look down on the computer, and there's about 3 pages of why water is in our life, and what is the purpose of water in a human life. I had no idea what that was. It just came. I assume it's the divine. I've been told I have 2 angels helping me write the book, and they wrote that in for me, and I'm going, I didn't write this, but I love it, so it's still in the book.
That's absolutely incredible. So you said about 3 pages of text were there, and you have no recollection of actually comprising that and putting it together.
That's correct.
That's unbelievable. Again, it's just when you're passionate about something, that inspiration hits you, or in this instance, it could be divine intervention, right? Whatever the case may be, those words found their way to your computer screen. And ultimately, now, was that a passage that you added into the book, or something that you used as a mark of inspiration for the story?
No, it's a passage in the book, in the beginning of the book, yes.
That's incredible.
It certainly is.
That's absolutely incredible. And what a great story to be able to now tell people based upon that. That's fantastic, David. I have next question that I'd love to go into. Again, this is another one of those questions where it's like, I think it would be safe to assume the answer here, but I'd love to hear it directly from the author's mouth. And, this way we can really pinpoint it. Now, I'm sure once any of our readers embark upon the journey that you've laid out for them, and they start reading the book, there's going to be a lot of different messages that they can pull from, as well as just from this interview that we've had thus far. There's so many messages and themes that we can point to that have already been brought up. But since we have you here on the line, what is one central message, one theme that you really want to make sure that our listening audience is aware of pertaining to your book?
Simple 4 words. We are all one. All of us people are all from the same source, the Creator. And one that I thought of earlier this morning. Every person on earth is a divine child of the Creator, in whom the Creator is well pleased. And that is in the book in several places. That we're all divine children of the Creator. We all may do things that other people don't condone, At our very essence, we are divine people. We are a divine spirit having a human experience, not the other way around. We are spirit enjoying a human journey. And so that's throughout the book.
Fantastic. Couple of things that I love about what you said, David, and I'm going to hold off briefly because it's going to lead us into another question. But one thing that I love and that we discuss here all the time on People of Distinction is we are all one. A lot of times, with probably every single interview that we do here, we always highlight and stress the fact that, listen, amongst our human family, right, we are all connected. We're all one. We're all in the same team. Everybody has different backgrounds. Everybody has different types, different thoughts, different mentalities, different ideologies that they believe in. But at the end of the day, we are connected. We're all human, and we're all in the same team that way. And that, I firmly believe, is how we grow and advance and develop as a society, is by coming together. As difficult as that may be sometimes, but that's what we strive for. Now, Dave, it's interesting that you say that and you highlight the fact that you bring up this notion of how we are all one, connected and created by, I think the word you used was by the Creator, right? Developed and put here by the Creator.
Right.
Now, I love the fact that you chose to go with the Creator and didn't give that higher force, that higher being, a specific name. I have always been someone that has found myself to be much more spiritual than religious. But since this is a concept that you discuss in the book, it's only right for me to ask the question, David, would you say, is this a book specifically geared for religious readers, or would anybody be able to pick up this book and enjoy it?
Well, my thoughts are, hopefully anybody could pick up and enjoy it. Mm-hmm. And stuff I got a good review from U.S. Review Books, said it's more about relationships. And I thought, as I put out my ideas, and a person reads it, and if it resonates in their heart, then it's for them. If it doesn't, that's fine. Because as you said, we all are different backgrounds and everything else, which means oneness is not sameness. Mm-hmm. And you're right on that one. But I'm just put the book out, and I've read this in other people, spiritual readers that I really like. Put your thoughts out and let people decide for them if they like it or not. And so that's what I've done. And if they don't resonate with it, that's fine. We're all at different levels of evolution in this planet. So it's my ideas about the universe. So hopefully it'll resonate with some people. Because it's, as you say, we are one is out there right now for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Beautiful stuff. David, beautiful stuff, man. Listen, the last question that I have to ask, and I ask this because I know this is your first book, but as you said, it's going to be the first in a trilogy. So there are 2 other books that are going to be out in the near future. The second one you're already starting to create at the moment. But you have published this one book, so you are a published author continuing on this journey. David, as we tie up this wonderful interview, being an artist myself, I love having this platform where I'm able to pay it forward to other artists that are out there. And I'm in a different medium, of course. I'm not a writer. But for any new writers, somebody just starting out, what would be some advice that you may be able to relate to them?
So my experience is, like I said, my mom said I was reading billboards at the age of 6. I've read books forever, all kinds of books. And I pay attention sometimes to, how do they do dialogue? How do they do structure? How do they set scenes? And so all that experience. There are lots and lots of writer workshops around the country. If you're a new writer, attend some. With people there with different ideas, to use an outline or do this or do that. Pick up these ideas and play with it yourself. But listen to other writers, published writers. They have a formula that works, so it may work for them. And read some other stuff and see what happens. I try and integrate all that, but I would say a good one is to make yourself available to these writers' workshops.
Yeah, listen, like anything, I mean, I love that advice is just great for anything in life, right? Now, of course, you're specifically gearing it towards writing, and for other artists out there. But guys, like anything else, if you want to get better at something, there's nothing to it but to do it, right? I mean, it's just go to the workshops. Practice makes perfect. That's how you're going to refine your skills and continue to develop and grow. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing it. There's always a benefit by being able to go to a workshop and practice some more. David, this has been absolutely incredible. Guys, listen, what more can be said? You know what you got to do. Okay, head on over to authorspress.com and pick up your copy of Be Not a Seeker, Be a Seer by David Hayes. You surely will not be disappointed. David, this has been an absolute pleasure, such a delight. Thank you very much for being a guest with us again today on People of Distinction.
Well, again, it's a great honor, and I'm glad I met you, Benji. This is great, and I appreciate the platform. So thanks for what you do in the world, too.